Hey, everybody. Happy Thursday. Come on in, take a seat. A lot of stuff to discuss today. Welcome to the Cluster Puck Podcast, part of the MHRT Network here at Center Ice. I am Nick. Joined me is Brit. How's it going, Brit?
Hello. It's going.
Yeah, it's a time to be an Avalanche fan. I'll just say that right now.
Oh my God. I heard a quote today and it really cracked me up that most teams, the only team whose season can continue to get worse even after they've been eliminated is our team. We're the only team with that nice little cherry on the top of getting kicked out.
Yeah. Okay, sorry, I just got a couple of things I got. All right. So, I guess before we begin and kind of talk about our sob story, I guess, as it were, don't forget to like and subscribe, follow the MHRT Network so you can get notified when shows like the Cluster Puck Podcast go live. You can do so on the various social media platforms of your choosing. And if you want to follow us, you may do so at the Cluster Puck Podcast, or that's on Facebook, and Cluster Puck Avs on Twitter, Instagram, and Threads. Okay, so Brit, the season's over. The Colorado Avalanche lost to the Dallas Stars in 7 games in a really tragic way, and now we're talking offseason. But before we kind of get into that, let's walk through the games a little bit. That game 6, right before we had the last episode, the Avalanche were able to execute and had a lot of puck luck doing so to force this game 7. Ultimately, though, it was pretty futile, as in game 7, you build a 2-0 lead, and all you had to do was play solid hockey for 19 minutes, and you move on. And then comes along a familiar face named Mikko Rantanen, who scores a third-period hat trick to not only put them in the lead, and then ties it. A really controversial penalty against the Avs occurs with like 3 minutes left. They score on that, go up, and Mikko pops the game
play to get him there. Pretty much the pick opens up the door for him to get through on that.
Yep. So I guess let's kind of discuss that game 7 moment first. Or really kind of, I don't know if we even maybe want to wrap this in as the series as a whole, because it kind of boils down to the same kind of 3 things, at least in my opinion. And the first one being you did not close out games.
No. No, not at all. Feels like the only time we can close it out is when we have to close it out and eke a couple of goals out to catch up and take the lead. It doesn't feel like we were capable of gaining a lead and protecting it through even just a period.
Mm-hmm. And that was the hard part too, is I told myself, and I think I even texted you this during that game 7, if we score a third, it is over, or we can close it out better, or whatever it is, because I knew at some point Dallas would get momentum with with the atmosphere that they're at, the push that they have. They have the drive, right?
Yeah.
They have that wanted.
They're
factor.
hungry,
And
there's a saying that you're not hungry when you're already full, and it feels like the Avs might be full. Yep. And Dallas is not.
Exactly. And that ability to close out games did not come in games 2 or 3, or now game 7, where you had a lead in some fashion going into the third, and you fumbled the bag.
That's right? What I've kind of gone back and forth. It almost would have been easier to stomach if they would have just like lost in 5, don't you think?
Probably. But again, it all boils back to what I kind of said last week, where the Avs were 2 overtime goals away from sweeping them.
Yeah.
And that's the hardest part, is you had a strong team And I'm not gonna go and say like, Dallas wanted it more, because that's an easy argument to make. Everybody wants to advance the same. Like that's
Yeah.
you
But I
know
think the willingness to do and give
it,
absolutely everything.
exactly. It's being able to walk your talk, right? Because everyone
And
wants the
for
same.
Miko Rantanen, which is hysterical because he's historically someone who does not always show up and prove that he wants something, like put in the work. But man, spite is a very, very good motivator.
Yeah. So, end of the day, I don't exactly blame one particular group, because obviously McKinnon showed that he was there. Makar, I don't know. Again, you can't blame him, but something was up. He was very much snake bitten.
Oh my god.
So
Ugh.
I don't quite know what to say. However, that the third period collapses have been like, that was kind of the Achilles heel. It was fueled by, though, a very lackluster power play. Right?
Yeah, and an embarrassing, truly unacceptable power play. I mean, especially when your power play is just as important in the playoffs, but generally it shouldn't be such a huge factor because they don't call as many penalties in the playoffs for the most part. But this year, man, there's been a lot of penalties called. And what did we have? Like 3 4-minute penalties that we didn't score on throughout this series.
There were a lot of opportunities. In fact, I could go back to a whole bunch of them where in the games we lost, particularly, where it's like, if you scored just one of those, the game's different. If you just capitalize on one of these, the game's different.
That one major penalty during that last game, I can't remember who it was against, but it felt like if we didn't score on that we were going to lose, even when we were not down yet. And I don't know. There's just something about if you can't score on a 4-minute power play on a team missing their best D and their best forward, like it just, I don't know.
Yeah. And consequently, what am I saying? Consequently, from that, because of that lackluster power play, that's kind of been a plague this whole season, where you've only been on fire like maybe twice.
And we are so stubborn and unwilling to change it at all. I mean, it's
here's the kicker, though, is it was I think, was it earlier today, later, I can't remember when, but the Avalanche fired their power play head coach in Ray Bennett, right?
And I think that this is the first year, last year and the year before, when the Avs got eliminated, it didn't feel good, but it didn't. We just knew that anything we got was just a perk. But this year, I feel like I felt that this team was, honestly, I think we talked about it, like as good or near as good as the 2022 team, with a league as a whole that isn't as good as it was in 2022. Genuinely felt like we could win. And that's what they said in the press conference when they hired Ray Bennett, or they fired Ray Bennett. And really, they chalked most of this season ending down to the power play and special teams in general. Ray Bennett also is in control of the forward group. So, I mean, it's a lot of power that he's got.
It is. And the thing that we've been complaining about, and when I say we, I mean a lot of us that cover the Colorado Avalanche, not just our podcast, but I've heard of plenty others that have talked about it, is that it's the zone entry when we're on the power play is so predictable. It's the drop back pass to McKinnon, and then all you have to do is effectively bottleneck them up.
Right. It doesn't matter how fast he is if somebody knows exactly where to be.
Yep.
Like,
if they put themselves in the right position, it squeezes McKinnon. He's forced to dump it to the corner, and then if they bite, or he's able to do a little backward shovel pass against the board, and then they can kind of set up from there. But more times than not, McKinnon usually has too much company before he can shovel that pass off, because they've really seen
we
where
just weren't. We had no like synchronization. Everybody was just Makar. Have you ever seen him miss passes the way that he missed them, or send bad passes the way that, even the ones that we may like power plays where we may have been able to maneuver around them already being able to predict what we're doing. Yeah. We just weren't. Excuse me, I have hiccups. I'm sorry.
Oh no, you're fine.
We just weren't I can't even think of the word. We were just so clumsy in doing it that there's no way we could even get away with sometimes,
No, and that's exactly right. So looking at this game 7, for example, you have 3 power play opportunities, which again, you're not going to encounter a ton of them in these types of situations in the playoffs, right? They get 4, they score on 2 of them. You get 3, you score on none of them. If you scored 1, we're talking about a whole different game, right? And I understand there's a lot of people that say, well, in this scenario, it wouldn't have made it different. Talking about, for example, the time in game 5 when you got beat pretty handedly by the Stars. But I talked about missed calls, and there were some people that had messaged me and said it wouldn't have made a difference. Right. Well, that's not true. The outcome may have been the same where Dallas still won, but you could have turned the momentum around, and you don't know what could have happened next.
Right.
Same exact thing.
The is so huge, but it is
exactly.
There were so many points where it was so disheartening, where we failed to capitalize on power plays that we were given in such pivotal moments in the game where we could have single-handedly
and exactly right. But the
problem it seemed like Dallas was always able to take advantage of those while we failed to.
And the problem is, it was the perfect storm for Dallas when they were on that PK, because they have a very aggressive PK where they will go out and hunt you instead of just sitting back in a box, which the Avs like and prefer if that happens. The problem being, though, as soon as that occurs, because obviously the Avalanche had the notion of all we're going to do is pass around the perimeter until we find the perfect shot. It just ended up being a recipe for disaster, because all you do is just make emergency passes, but then there's a guy right on top of you as soon as you receive a pass. So a lot of these power plays, you were set up in your offensive zone for a good long while, but it was more just like trying to keep possession as you were being haggled by the penalty kill. So that's kind of, again, that to me is another big part of how these games don't shift in your favor, especially when you're trying to maintain something or go after a lead or whatever situation you're in. Passing around the puck and just basically wasting precious power play minutes is not a very effective scenario or solution to having that type of an advantage. So obviously for Ray Bennett's case, they let him go. Something needs to change for next season. I saw that as being one of them. In fact, I was even going to talk about it anyways before he was let go. So again, that's one of them. I think the last thing, again, I don't want to say that Dallas wanted it more. I think everyone wants it the same.
It's just what are you willing to do to get that one?
It's about putting in the effort that matches your desire, right? And obviously, I understand
going to have a real rough time when they get to see the Rantanen that, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
Rantanen is fueled by hate right now, but they're gonna see the Rantanen that literally caused many nights of lost sleep for much of the Avs fan base.
No, and you're exactly right. So again, I can't say, I can't just sit here and say, clearly the Avalanche, played their heart out and stuff, which they did, but they also had no way of stopping momentum, right? Despite how much they wanted to. And I understand they did their best, so to speak.
Now,
There are just times where particular players just disappeared. I'm particularly thinking about Cale Makar and Jonathan Drouin right now, where it's like I didn't even think about you for like all of the game.
It was hard sometimes to even remember that Drouin was in the lineup.
Yeah. And like with Ross Colton being out, Miles Wood being out, all these scratches
That
and
was
things like
one
that.
thing with Ross Colton that I don't know if we plan to bring up, but like, were you not stunned to hear that Ross Colton with a pulled groin was supposedly the only injury on the team, or are they just trying to not?
I'm pretty sure at some point we're going to hear about all the injuries that were happening, with maybe the exception of Gabe Landeskog. But again, you that's kind of expected in these types of playoff. In the NHL, everyone plays with something broken, bruised, battered,
Well, yeah.
torn,
Did you see
whatever.
Tampa's release of their
Yeah,
injuries?
exactly, right? And so everyone
Which I
has
think
those.
that they fluff those. I think Tampa Bay likes to make it look as dramatic as possible,
I think they do,
and the
right?
ads do the opposite.
Exactly. But at the same time, you look at the year we won the cup, Nichushkin was playing on a broken foot and had the x-rays to back it up, right? So again, I'm not going to sit here and say that every team is lying about their injuries, but again, it's everyone has them is what I'm saying. So to me, I don't
and that's
find
the
it
key in wanting it bad enough that your adrenaline pushes you through playing with a broken foot. I mean, that's
exactly, right? And so you both want it the same. You both want to advance, right? Because it's win or go home. But it's just about executing on that desire. And Dallas was able to do that. Luckily for them, it was a home atmosphere. So that gave them a lot of adrenaline, a lot of momentum from their fans backing them. And for Mikko, it just so happened that he got his hat trick, right? Again, it's hard to say that this was fueled by like hatred or anything like that, because in that handshake line, he hugged Landeskog for such a long time, said he missed him,
yeah.
said
But
welcome
would he
back.
have if they had lost? Would he have been?
I probably not, because again, you just got kicked out, and so you could see Landeskog wasn't happy at all. He said, "I don't care who scored a hat trick. I don't scare, you know."
Yeah.
But it would have been a different feeling if they did win, and that's natural, right? If you gave it your all and you lost,
I mean, power to
gonna
Mikko.
feel
I mean,
bad.
that's what in anything, spite
Exactly.
and revenge is very powerful.
Yep, exactly. So, it is
But you
kind
know
of
what? I did like what Bednar talked about with scar tissue, and that series loss to Vegas hurt so bad that we came back to the playoff next year, a different team with a different fuel in our veins and I think that this loss might be one of those losses that builds that scar tissue that that propels you. You know what I mean? Gives you that chip on the shoulder that you need.
Yep. And because I mean, look what happened the year after we lost to the Kraken in round 1, right?
Yeah.
We came back and did a great number against Winnipeg, moved on to round 2, and then that obviously stuff kind of fell apart there. However, the question that remains then is, was this the 2024-25 Colorado Avalanche season a success?
No. I genuinely, this team, anything short of Western Conference Finals to me is a failure. This roster is, they should no.
Yeah. So my opinion of it is this: if you make it into the playoffs, season was successful.
Yeah.
Did you reach your goal? However, that's a no, right? The expectation that we have put is Western Conference Final, because we know we're capable of getting at least that far. So it's kind of a yes and no mixed bag. I understand. I'm trying not to be philosophical on this whole thing, but you were able to play playoff hockey, right?
Yeah.
Which is great for your fans to have. And it was a really great series of 7. It was frustrating, and obviously I'm still not over it, which is kind of why I
still
wanted
stunned. It's hard for me to even I love watching playoff hockey, and I've always I watch pretty much every single game that's on when I'm around, and I check the score every day.
Exactly.
But it stings.
It
Like, so
hurts,
bad this year. The last
especially in the
2
way that you
years,
lost.
yeah.
Kind of like with last year where it went to overtime and
But I
you
just
lose
feel
in
like last year and
excruciating
the
fashion.
year before, we just knew that it probably wasn't our year. Like, we just knew that it wasn't quite it. But like,
Potentially, yeah.
not this year. This year, I had every single ounce of faith, like every single belief that this team belongs in the Stanley Cup final.
Yeah, and everyone should. If you make the playoffs, why not have that confidence, right? So again, just kind of to drive home what I think is if you make it to the playoffs, obviously your season was successful enough to have the privilege of playing postseason, right? However, if you're going based off of your goals, off of what your team can accomplish, then yeah, you fell short. The good news, though, is that there is always next year. So let's talk about that, Britt. The masses of the Colorado Avalanche fans are calling for the termination of either or maybe even both Jared Bednar and Chris McFarland. What do you make of that? Do you agree with any of that or no?
Chris McFarland gave them a roster more than capable of winning the Stanley Cup. Chris McFarland did his job. I am honestly so sick of reading on Twitter and people not understanding the concept of the Rantanen trade, how there was more to it than just signing him. It wasn't a choice to trade him thinking that we would get better. It was kind of a choice out of necessity that imagine if we had kept Rantanen, which he wouldn't. There's a very good chance that he wouldn't have played even a fraction as well as he's playing for Dallas right now. Where was this Rantanen earlier in the year when we were floundering?
Yeah.
So sorry, I'm just going to go off on a million tangents here, but
no, you're good.
The trade with Rantanen was not a trade to get better because we felt like getting Natchez would make us better than Rantanen. It was ultimately a decision that revolved around getting deeper and the cost in keeping him versus what it would have meant for what we could do on our depth this year and for the rest of whatever contract he signs. They outweighed each other. And if they weren't going to be able to sign a contract regardless by the end of this season, could you imagine if we had kept him and lost and then he walked for nothing? Could you imagine what that would have? People would have been calling for Chris's heads even still. I've never even felt that firing Bednar was like a thought in the same universe, and I still didn't anticipate them firing him. I think Ray Bennett, he's the head that's going to roll. Some people are using the term scapegoat, but I don't think it's necessarily a scapegoat because a lot of that is his responsibility, but a lot of it comes down to the players that they're the ones who need to play and they need to do it. Yeah. But I am ready to consider the fact, though, that next year, if we do have a quote unquote failure of a season and fail to make it past the second round, that it may be a consideration. Jared Bednar may be on the hot seat. And I am thankful that we have a team that doesn't fire coaches willy-nilly to make a point. How stupid do you think the Bruins feel for firing Montgomery? And then he took St. Louis. There are not better coaches just lingering around waiting.
Isn't that crazy?
Jared Bednar is an incredible coach.
He is.
He's also a great sense of pride for the Avs. They plucked him out of nowhere and broke a cycle of just freaking the same good old boys. And they brought him in. They found him, brought him in, and he's been our coach for almost 10 years. And when you consider where he started to where he's at, the seat has not been hot until maybe next year. But even then, it's not a coaching problem. You know what I mean? There were some decisions that I don't agree with, but it's a learning process. We'll see next year if he makes some of those same mistakes. But this whole idea of DeBoer out coaching Bednar and people acting as though that takes precedent over the fact that our players just didn't show up to play in a lot of very key scenarios. It's just amazing how smart everyone is on Twitter compared to the people who are getting paid millions of dollars to do it,
Yeah. And here's the thing is when Jared Bednar came in, Yeah, he came in at like the lowest of low times,
Yeah.
but look what he did to this organization, right?
Yeah.
He's turned it around, and we haven't failed to make a playoff appearance in
He
what,
won a
7
Stanley
years?
Cup. Like,
We
people
went,
do
yeah,
not realize that every year there are 31 teams who do not win the Stanley Cup. Every single year, 32 teams have a failure, and he did it. And
yeah,
that's, people just don't realize how freaking lucky, even if we don't win another cup in this window, we are still incredibly blessed.
exactly. And again, kind of to your point, the coaches are not out there on skates during the game.
Right.
The players are,
Yeah.
right? Granted, they inherit and kind of, absorb everything the coach has taught them, but
Right.
it's up to them to execute, right? It's
And
up to
it's not
them
a
to be able to go
motivation
and
problem.
do. And these are all grown men, right? They know
Right.
exactly what they need to do, how they need to do it. They've honed their skills. That's why they're all in the big leagues,
Yeah.
So for people to call on McFarland or Sakic, I've heard people even going after Sakic or Bednar. Again,
We're out of their goddamn minds if they think that.
you're basically saying, good isn't, having a good coach, having a good GM. That's kind of fallen by the wayside now.
Especially when you have Nathan
Instead of
McKinnon on your
turning,
team, and he is not an easy human to coach.
yeah, and so it's a really dangerous mentality in my mind to have, because I think, in my opinion, I think a head coach, whether they are good or not, should at least have 2 years, especially if they're on a really, really bad team.
Yes, at least
To try
2
and
years.
turn it around, right? Because
Yeah.
if there's people that are like your one and dones, that really means that the team was looking at an instant success.
Yeah, it means that they know that there's a problem elsewhere, but that's the
exactly. But that's a scapegoat, right? So, in my mind, Bednar is fine. McFarland is fine. He put, like you said, McFarland has put together deep teams that we have seen be capable of going into the playoff deeper and deeper and deeper. But it's on the players to execute that, and that's ultimately what it boiled down to in this loss.
While it's on my mind, I was going to ask you quick, speaking of players, and it's been weighing on me pretty heavy. I've been following the trial for the World Juniors, and Cale Makar is a witness that has to possibly appear for a Zoom questioning and stuff. And do you think that could be a pretty big factor? Because he is not on trial. He's not in trouble. He wasn't even present. But I think that he is like a very not pure-hearted person, but I think he is a very morally driven person. I think he's a good human, and you got to wonder if that's weighing on him very heavily, that they're literally in the midst of the worst part of this trial during the playoffs, and he's someone that...
Well, to answer that question, Britt, I will just turn the attention to the last 2 seasons and a man named Val Nichushkin. All of a sudden gets plucked out of nowhere with issues, be it drug abuse, be it whatever happened in Seattle, which I guess they got solved and the league was happy with it. But all of a sudden he's gone from extracurricular activities. They then would go on to lose that very same series. I mean, I'm just calling it as I see it. It looks like it does some things to you where you're not completely in the game mentally.
Yeah. And right? I just wondered too if he's struggling to have the same locker room morale that he generally brings to the room, because Cale Makar is a leader in the room. And you got to wonder if he's really weighted down by, and I mean, coming down to things like being able to sleep well at night or stressing at night. You know what I mean? Those add up when you are.
It 100% does. 1%. And again, we talk about these hockey players like they're these mindless robots that all they do is go and put in the work and win or lose and whatever. They give a very uncandid interview.
No, that's Mitch Marner's wife just had a baby last week.
Exactly, right? These players are people like us, right? Mm-hmm. They have feelings. They have likes and dislikes. We're no different. In fact, case in point, this was just at the now Utah Mammoth, which we'll talk about that in a second. We were at a little kind of exchange team event thing that I was able to go to. And I had a conversation with Jack McBain, a very long conversation with him. And I just asked questions like, if you could get in a fight, who would it be with, or what, A, B, and C. And he just kind of he kind of was like, as if we've been friends forever, right?
Yeah.
And he was just like, oh man, I've always dreamed of fighting. Yeah, Reeves was the guy he wanted to fight the most. But the point I'm getting at, though, is he was so excited to share that type of information because it sounds like no one has even asked him that question. So it's the same thing with Kale, where, I'm not asking him any questions or getting to know him personally, but he has those feelings where they weigh him down. And this could be one of those situations where his mind just wasn't in the game, and probably wasn't for like the last half of the season when this whole trial thing sprang back to life.
It's hard to say that it's not justified. That's a pretty big burden to be carrying around.
Yeah. So again, he was snake bitten for some reason. It could be injury, could be mentally. I would understand.
He's got that hand taped up, like, man.
Yeah. So again, I think I'm hoping that what you said, just a few minutes ago, where this becomes like an enraged type fuel, I'm hoping that is what ultimately propels them past the second round next year. Because again, I don't foresee the Avs not making the playoffs next year. They got plenty of.
There's no rebuild. Our window's not closed. I'm so sick of hearing that.
Yeah, I mean, as long as you have Makar, Landeskog, and McKinnon on your team, your window is still open.
Man,
or even
that interview with McKinnon, he was stunned. The way he said we couldn't even beat him. And there's been a lot of different interpretations of that as to whether like he hates Chris McFarland, blah, 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 and I just I don't think that there's any animosity between the players and McFarland and Sakic for what happened. I think that they probably all have some animosity towards Rantanen for being he is the only one of the core that never took anything even remotely team friendly. And he just said we couldn't beat them without their best forward and their best D. So I don't know what we're going to do. I mean, that was the look of a man who is internalizing some big feelings that will hopefully come back in the form of rocking their world. And we have to beat Dallas at some point. I hope we see them in the first round next year and beat them because we have to. I mean, that's a demon that we just have to slay.
Well, I'm going to disagree with you on that one.
You don't think so?
The only reason why is look at Los Angeles.
I know.
Edmonton is their kryptonite. It's not like, it appears so. No, they cannot.
I just cannot believe them.
Right.
But Dallas has some serious cap issues coming up next season. And
right. And
them going all in.
Yeah, and there's a lot of like external things that will come into affect people's rosters and playability, all that kind of stuff. But in 5 years, you've lost to Dallas 3 times, right? The one time you didn't have to face Dallas was the year you went to the Cup, and then obviously the Seattle year. But that had some external things going about it too, right?
I've gone through my moments of turmoil, and it's like. Was 22 like a fluke, us winning? Like, were we even like, was it totally just a fluke?
I honestly think we were that good. I mean, we broke our own franchise points record in the season, right? So I think that one was, again, you were just the best team. And it really kind of wasn't.
I just had to go through my steps of grieving and denial.
No, I get what you're saying, though. I totally understand.
It's still not sitting right with me. I'm just still not okay.
And that's just it, is on paper you could have the better team. Like, I thought LA was going to go and murder Edmonton and be done in 5 at the latest, but guess what, they've lost now 4 years in a row in the first round to them. That's insane.
But they parted with Rob Blake, which I don't think it was Rob Blake's fault. I think when you consider the age of that team and I think what he's done has been pretty impressive. I know that the PLD was largely considered a fail, but they brought in Darcy Kemper with that. Ultimately,
he became a Vezina finalist, right?
Yeah, so Darcy Kemper's been the best thing about their team this year. So obviously I'm a little partial to Rob Blake, but it sounds like it may have pretty mutual in that he was ready to do a little more. I guess he's a big surfing guy, which it's so weird to think about him being a surfing guy to me, but I guess he's a surfer.
Oh, there you go. That's good.
Um,
So anyway, obviously in the next few weeks, we're going to go through season grades for all the players. We're going to talk about off-season moves. The coming season, it's going to be a longer off-season for us with a first-round exit.
But okay, so positive stuff. We don't have to spend the summer wondering what the hell are we going to do about goaltending. Is our captain coming back, and will Nichushkin be playing? We have solved the 3 things that we absolutely agonized over last summer. Now we can just agonize over normal fan shit and not that.
we can be normal fans for once.
Yeah. It was truly such a dreadful offseason. I felt like the discussion was so redundant, but now it can just be, how do we get better? We know our captain's here. We know that Nuke is trustworthy and healthy, and we got a goalie that absolutely kicked ass in the playoffs. So feels good.
I think you're right. I mean, goaltending is going to be okay. Obviously, there's room for improvement, but I like where the goaltending's at. All you need is a goaltender that's good at that does the job night in and night out, which he did. Obviously he let in more goals than the other guy, but that other guy was Jake Ottinger. But I don't pin any of this on the goalie. Like, I haven't even thought about Mackenzie Blackwood once about this full finals loss.
Yep.
Right. So there is that, right? The other is, it was a privilege to finally see 92 back in an Avs sweater, playing in a playoff setting. That in itself, even if we only got to watch the 4 games,
it's a shame that it ended this way, but my God, what a great feeling for him.
That's got to leave a lot of confidence for next season, where he will play
for his team in general to redirect the ship, get back in line. His team, take it back. I think that it will do a lot.
Yeah. So again, we'll talk about off season, where we have a lot of players to go through. We're going to talk free agency. Like I said, there's
not a whole lot of draft action for us this year.
Not a lot of draft action, but
we don't even have a draft pick until the 3rd round or the 6th round,
the 32nd round of 2029. Like, we don't have a draft pick.
We don't have any for the first 2 rounds. I don't think, at least for the next 2 years. But
let's go ahead and shift gears then, Brit, to just kind of our last few housekeeping items. Obviously, the bulk of which we've talked about with the Avs stuff. However, there are some things around the league that I did want to touch on. That first one being that lottery draft. What did you think about the setup? What did you think about the results?
I didn't get to watch it. I've heard that it was extremely confusing. I have it recorded and I'm going to watch it. I know I forgot to tell you I didn't get to watch it, but I've listened to people discuss it. I haven't found it on I couldn't find it on ESPN or anything. So I thought it was recorded on my Hulu, which is ESPN Plus. So I need to go back in and look. I've been sleeping a lot. I got some teeth pulled, and I've been dead to the world. But I heard it was really messy and it felt really rigged up, which the fucking Islanders, what the heck?
Well, that's so I was able to watch it. It was confusing. That one I will say. However,
that's how you get people saying it's rigged, is by making it confusing.
And that's exactly right. However, them doing it in front of you did put my mind at ease.
Yeah, that's true.
Right?
Yeah.
It is crazy though how the Islanders landed the first overall pick.
It feels like if it was gonna be rigged, what a good time to take a team that has a good population, a good fan base that has been so incredibly mediocre. They got rid of Lou Lamoriello. It's a good springboard for them to get back into action. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So obviously, I liked that they just had all the ping pong balls, and one of them shot up. So it's like, you didn't just look at the number and pick it. It was, just this machine. So that took away my thing of okay, the whole thing's rigged. It literally is just a numbers game. And The only thing I didn't like is them displaying a chart in front of you with those pre-selected numbers.
Yeah.
Right? Because that would have been helpful, that it's like, okay, if you're the Avs or whatever team, I guess Avs weren't in that conversation, but if we're the Islanders, in that sheet of 1,000, you had these set of 100 or 200 or however many.
Yeah, and it sounds like they didn't do a good job explaining for the more like casual fan.
Yeah.
The concept of only moving up 10. So like even if
so I like how that happened, but they need to do a better job of letting us, the regular fan,
it needs to be worded very simply.
Exactly.
With a constant visual of if this team draws anything to this, and even when they say the most they can move up is 10, and it's like, well, that doesn't
exactly right. So like one thing that they didn't tell you, which I had to find out later, is that it doesn't matter the order that those numbers 1 through 15 or 6, whatever happen, it's all in numerical order. So for example, you could draw 14, 3, 8, and 9. But what matters though is that it's that 4 not in order. Right.
Yeah, and
so because it just drops to 3, 8, 9, 14.
Too complicated. Right? So like they need to just, as much as I would love for it to just be the worst gets the first drawing, like completely linear to your positioning in the standings. I do appreciate that it does promote not tanking entirely.
Which that is another good thing to take out of it.
Tanking is a systematic thing, and it's something that isn't a guarantee to get good. How long has the Sens been tanking?
Here's a question then regarding that, though, because obviously the two big winners of that lottery were the Islanders landing the first overall pick, being in 11th, and the Utah now Mammoth going from 14th to 4th. Right?
Which honestly is almost as big of a win as getting first overall, especially in a year like this where there is no distinct first.
I mean, you missed the playoffs by 7 points, or basically a 4-game swing, and you're rewarded with the 4th overall pick. That's a win,
Absolutely.
So
there isn't one player. They may as well end up the first overall. Isn't always, or even generally,
especially in this draft where you have.
It's a toss-up. Whatever your team needs is going to dictate.
There's I think the top 5 are kind of like all right there, and then it just
there's a good chance they get the best player for their needs.
Exactly. There is a wonderful chance that happens. So that does exactly what your point says, where just because you finished last doesn't mean you get the best. Yeah. So here's my question though: is would you rather have that what we just experienced earlier this week? Or would you rather have what the PWHL does, and you begin to get draft points based off of if you win or lose after you're eliminated from playoff
I really contention? Like that concept. I like the idea of
it is a good concept.
Having competitive, meaningful hockey after elimination. Because not only does it drive the teams that are eliminated, it puts pressure on the teams that are going into the playoffs and forces them to think harder about load management type stuff, having to work hard against teams working hard that are eliminated in order to establish home ice. They might be playing against a team that's eliminated, and it normally would be a cakewalk or not as concerning. But if that team is working to earn draft points, then you have two teams playing for something meaningful in totally different ways.
Yeah. And what I'm wondering though, and I can't remember if this is how far the PWHL goes. I apologize for not knowing that. But what if it's you as soon as you're eliminated, you begin to get all this draft points, right? Elimination points or whatever they call it. And the more you get, the better or the more numbers you get assigned for that lottery poll.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah,
so I don't hate that at all. A hybrid that you can kind of marry the two ideas.
And that's one thing that's kind of cool about the PWHL is we're getting to see them kind of go through some things and almost like AHL-ish, a little guinea pig-ish. Like I love the jailbreak concept with the PWHL.
Oh, it's wonderful.
Where the shorthanded goal, if you get a shorthanded goal, then you get out of
you're out of the penalty kill. Yeah, that's a wonderful idea.
Yeah, and it's nice to see them doing these things and seeing it work out successfully or unsuccessfully, and then the NHL can take it into consideration, for their platform.
Yeah,
but I like that a lot. I like the idea of more meaningful hockey Because it
And what's
sure
the
does feel like just kind of like a drag sometimes.
It
And
does.
we're lucky. We've had a team that we've known was going into the playoffs for most of the year for the last couple of years. So it's not as dreadful as just waiting for them to be done, you know?
Yeah. Nope, you're exactly right. So it's again, I like that the PWHL takes those initiatives because it's like, okay,
Yeah.
there's got to be a way to make the game more interesting, or that you're always giving it your all, even if you've been eliminated
Yeah.
halfway through the freaking
And they
season.
certainly seem, and they don't have nearly as much pushback, or like they don't have the same set standards that they've been doing it this way for so long that blah, blah, blah. They really seem to be a lot more willing to take the initiative to try something new and scary.
Yeah, and I'm pretty sure the NHL is keeping close tabs on it,
Oh, I'm
obviously.
sure. Yeah.
But maybe at some point that does become a thing.
I like
You
it.
never know.
It feels like
Um,
something has to change at some point because it just is not. I don't know. It just doesn't feel like it's even close to being as good as it could be.
Yeah. Here's a question from Baby Billy where he says, how about the PWHL rule where the top seed gets to choose who they want to play? And then he's referring to this being in
Yeah.
the playoffs. That, again, another out there concept where, for me, I understand being a small league. I think it works in a small league setting, but I
Yeah.
don't know about big, because the
I love
problem is like, are we talking about you only get to pick within your conference, or do you pick with
I don't know, but
anybody
think
in
about
10?
the chaos that it could create with
Oh, it could be a great thing for
you pick
chaos.
a
No,
team.
no. And it's not a
Imagine
bad
if you
idea.
picked a team and then you lost to them. Like it
Oh,
would
wouldn't that be
almost be
something?
the most interesting dread a team could feel.
You
Or you
picked
could
your
have the
own
option to
doom.
opt out of it because it would be horrific to lose to a team that you chose, because in teams like this or seasons like this year in the West, even if you did it by conference,
Oh,
there's
sure.
no guarantee within a conference of who's the,
Oh, yeah.
at least on the East, you could pick Montreal, but for God's sake, Montreal wasn't even a guaranteed win this year.
Yeah. So again, you could be choosing your own doom. And again, I
And
like
you
the
would look
idea,
like
and
an
I think
ass.
in a small setting with 6 teams, now soon to be 8, because they obviously announced their PWHL expansion to Vancouver
Yeah.
and Seattle. That's fun for
So
those 2
cool.
teams and those organizations.
Yeah.
I think in a small setting it works. I
Yeah.
think pick your team, and you never know what's going to happen, because the likelihood of the outcome not being in your favor is lesser, where in a larger setting where all the teams that make it in, anyone has I don't want to say an equal chance, but has a decent shot of beating each other. I mean, you
Yeah.
just look at the Avs back when they were a wild card beating the number 1 seed Calgary.
Yeah,
There's always
especially
that chance.
the bottom feeders they are disappearing quickly. The Red Wings,
Yeah,
the Sens, the all the teams, the Blackhawks, even the Ducks are on their way. The Sharks. There are very few distinct teams that are a guarantee at
exactly.
all.
So again, that would just beg the question though,
Yeah,
is
I
would
would
you
imagine
the
the
draft
Jets would have picked
continue?
the Blues, and
It's
holy God, the Blues gave them every single ounce that they
oh
had.
my gosh.
I thought
Oh,
that they were gonna do it. Kudos to Hellebuck. I think I picked Winnipeg as my spite team that I'm going for, because I need Dallas to lose. If Dallas wins on the narrative that Rantanen carries them, I will not be able to watch hockey or listen to any hockey media for the rest of the summer.
it just, some things just hurt more.
Yeah, and
But
if
I get
Canada's
this.
going to take it, I love Toronto, but I can also, equally as annoying would be if Edmonton or Toronto takes it. I can't handle listening to their fans and the media talk about
Yeah,
them the whole summer. So
potentially.
I'm banking on Winnipeg, and if Winnipeg wins, that means that the cup goes back to Canada. They finally get it, but it's
I
tainted
know.
because it's their black sheep. Nobody really likes them nearly as much. And they know that it was on the back of the goalie that's going to go take the Olympic gold from Canada. No doubt about it. Because if
There
he
you
shakes
go.
his yips, then they know that they're screwed. Because if Hellebuck
Yep.
plays like the Hellebuck that is, essentially the best goalie in the entire world on any given day, that's got to be terrifying for Canada.
Yeah, I do hope that 2 new teams make it into the final, just because I like the parity, right?
I can't believe Toronto is. I cannot believe that they are up 2 games on Florida.
They could do it.
They may have. I think they're grown-ups. They're
could
the
do it.
adults in the
We'll
playoffs
have to
now.
find out. And speaking of new teams, just the last item we wanted to touch on with news around the league. The Utah Hockey Club has renamed and officially unveiled their branding as the Utah Mammoth.
Yeah.
Obviously, this one's going to come with some bias from my part, being a Utah resident, living just a few minutes from the arena. But, Britt, I don't know if you had any time to take a look at that or give your opinions.
What's your take? No, you have to go first.
I love it. Like, it's awesome. I
It's
understand.
Clean and it's crisp, and I think that the biggest negative, quote unquote, is it's safe. It's not loud.
Yeah, the jerseys aren't loud, and I'm hoping with some time those do evolve.
It's Utah. Utah's not exactly known for being boisterous and sexy. Like,
oh yeah, no, but again, with the way they have things set up, their future is just golden right now.
Mm-hmm.
And the logo is really sharp. It's clean, you know. So I'm all on board. The Tusks Up rally cry. it's a bit of a gimmick, I'm not gonna lie, but it's fun, right?
Yeah. But when you look at the logo, I don't know if the orientation is just opposite of the Wild. It feels like it needs to be mirrored.
So, well, here's the thing: is everyone is saying that it's a mashup between the Wild and Predators, because the Predators also faces right, and it's a white saber-toothed tiger.
Do they both face the opposite way? It feels like it needs to be mirrored. It feels wrong in my brain.
Let me make sure I'm pointing it on the screen as you see it. The Mammoth and the Predators both point that way, whereas the Wild points this way.
My brain needs it to be facing the Wild direction. I'm not sure why.
Oh, see, I'm anything that kind of makes you stand out, I guess, is great. Now, it has the potential to be a timeless. Obviously, it's going to be, a good thing down the road.
Yeah.
But it's nice to finally just have something tangible, right? Because it does.
Did you see the Mammoth?
What's that?
Sorry, my dogs are. Did you see the Mammoth, the lacrosse team getting snotty on Facebook?
They did, but so there's 2 things I want to address, and this one came from Baby Billy as well. So the guy that posted that on Reddit, he took it down because he understood that he kind of was in the wrong, because he took 2 concepts that Utah had made and meshed them together.
So he had made it from that.
So he's like, no, like it was just a thing, and he said he's not looking for like they took it from me or anything, because Utah had already created those 2 logos, and he just happened to blend it where it's like anybody probably would.
Obviously, if he blends 2 of their logos, it's gonna end up reminiscent of what.
And there were a lot of people that were getting pretty fired up about it, like, hey, you need to sue, and he's like, no, that's not like. I was way in the wrong. So he cleared that up, which I kind of read into that too. And I was like, hang on, this guy had something. But no, he admitted to it. The other thing, though, was on the Colorado Mammoth. Now, here's one thing that Greg Wyshynski even posted on Twitter. He said that the Smith Entertainment Group was in close talks with the Kroenke family, and they got the blessing from the Colorado Mammoth.
Well, and I'm sorry, but the Mammoth they're a friggin' lacrosse, like nobody other than Coloradans know or give a shit about them.
You broke out a little bit. Say that one more time.
The thing is like you're a lacrosse team. Like you're not.
Yeah, it's different league, different state.
Hometown Colorado, Utah.
And again, this is not something new. I mean, the Jets share with the New York Jets.
Yeah,
the Panthers share with the Carolina Panthers. So in fact,
the only thing that I see coming from it is at least they'll just get more clicks just by accident.
And again, and the only thing that happens when it comes to when you say Mammoth, there will be those handful of people that'll just ask, do you mean Colorado Mammoth or Utah Mammoth? Right. And then you just clear it up.
And the Colorado Mammoth logo is so different that
and it's different enough. It's a great logo.
Yeah,
right? They're both
and the colors. Mac loves their logo.
I don't really see it becoming much of an issue unless you live in Colorado. And that's the problem is since they're so geographically identical, Utah and Colorado, they're bound
Yeah,
to
it's not like the
find and
known thing is
encounter
it's not
the same type
freaking
of names,
yeah.
you know.
They're
But
obviously
again,
going to have the same interests and aesthetics. It's not
exactly right, and they're different enough that I don't really see it being as a problem, right? Because I've watched my share of Colorado Mammoth games, and they're great, they're fun, right?
But they're
I
also
enjoy
unimportant enough that if the Smiths needed to just buy the Mammoth and change their name, then that's more.
essentially. But again, the SEG group here, here in Utah, they went through all the extents to make sure that the Colorado Mammoth were okay with it. Apparently, someone didn't tell the admin. The admin kind of was a little upset, and so he posted,
I like it though.
Mammoth since 2003, but they got the blessing from the owners of the Colorado Mammoth, and so they've kind of taken every avenue to make sure that their steps are taken properly, which is
they're just not jerks, the owners of the Utah. I mean, there's no spite in it at all.
Exactly. So so exactly right. So I think the Utah Mammoth and Colorado Mammoth, it's different league, it's different state.
They can exist in harmony.
They can exist in that same capacity, the same as the other teams that have the same type of name sharing. And I think, in 5 years, even no one's going to even care about this type of conversation because they just coexist and everyone's fine with that.
I agree.
So anyway, that kind of make a short story long. Welcome to the league now, officially the Utah Mammoth. I'm excited for this Rocky Mountain rivalry now that we have the Avalanche and the Mammoth. Obviously, when the Avs come here to Utah, I'll always be sporting the Avalanche sweater as I have been last season. But it's finally nice to have a name to go with everything, and kind of make the league back to whole again.
I agree.
Yep. So anyway, that'll kind of take us right to our hour mark. Again, we'll have plenty more to talk about on the Avalanche side about off-season stuff, but we wanted to share our thoughts. It was a fun season nonetheless. It's always great when you have your hockey team playing as long as possible. But
no guarantees that I'm not back next week, just needing to re-complain about the exact same thing over again.
We might just be doing that for 3 whole months straight. But again, we'll get to season grades. We'll get to off-season moves. We'll talk about kind of all the odds and ends as far as draft and stuff like that as time moves on. And we have a lot of stuff to talk about in the off-season. We'll make sure that we space our episodes out to talk about all the things that come up. So
it's going to be a very interesting free agent season for us to see who we bring back, who we don't.
It should be good.
That's where our drama is going to be, really, is who's staying and who's going.
It should be. Okay, well, thank you, everyone, for joining us on this episode of the Cluster Puck Podcast. Always enjoy everyone's feedback within the show, and we encourage you to do so as well. If you want to follow the MHRT Network, we ask that you do so. You can follow them on the various social media platforms of your choosing. And if you want to follow us, we ask that you do so at the Cluster Puck Podcast on Facebook and at Cluster Puck Abs on Twitter, Instagram, and Threads. With that being said, the offseason begins, and there is a whole new world to go and figure out as far as what you're going to do for the 25-26 season. So we're going to talk about that in the coming weeks and months. So everyone, buckle up. It's going to be fun. With that being said, though, have an awesome weekend. The weather's getting warmer. That means we get happier.
Yep.
And as always, go Avs, go.
Fast lane when I pass in the street, bag of money in the passenger seat. Simcoe's been asking for me on the road from the west to the east. Way up, I might never come down, cause the coast's racking up the flight miles. So high, I might never come down, so what, this is my life.